What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the TYSK Report. I got some great articles lined up for you as always, so let's get right to it. In the first article, as RoboTaxi companies stumble in the US, China's fleet is growing. Pony.ai said it would expand its RoboTaxi fleet from about 250 to at least 1,000 vehicles in 2025, thanks to a partnership with GAC Ion, a division of one of China's biggest automakers. With a larger fleet, the company says it plans on growing its service areas in the so-called first-tier cities of Beijing, Guangzhou, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. Pony's current fleet averages 15 rides per vehicle per day, which translates to over 26,000 trips every week. The US is on high alert about China's growing dominance in the field of autonomous vehicles. Earlier this year, the Biden administration proposed new rules to block the sale or import of connected vehicle software originating from China, arguing that the vehicles with hardware and software from the country pose an acute threat to US national security. No AV operator in the world is currently profitable. The fleets are still too small. The companies are mostly cautious about growing too quickly, and the technology is still more expensive than the meager revenues being brought in. Pony.ai and others are hoping that China's government will soon allow their vehicles to expand into suburban areas. Meanwhile, Trump's transition team is weighing whether to create a federal framework for self-driving cars, which could enable a wider deployment of vehicles without traditional controls like steering wheels and pedals. So that's just some news related to Pony.ai. With that Trump statement, it was very interesting for him to want to create a framework specifically for those robotaxis without steering wheels and pedals, which would greatly benefit Elon Musk and his robotaxis and would not benefit the likes of Waymo, whose vehicles that they test all the time have steering wheels and pedals. So as of right now, it looks like it's just Waymo, Pony.ai, and also Baidu, and possibly some other companies, but those are some of the main three that have been popping up in the news a lot more. So we'll definitely see what happens next with all of this. But since we did speak about Trump, let's dive in more into Trump wanting to put the hammer on electric vehicles. Trump reportedly plans to reverse Biden's EV policies. And perhaps the least surprising news of the past 6 weeks, President-elect Donald Trump reportedly plans to roll back President Biden's electric vehicle and emissions policies. Reuters reports that the incoming president transition team has recommended cutting off support for EVs and charging stations while boosting measures to block cars, components, and battery materials from China. The transition team's other reported plans include new tariffs on all battery materials globally, boosting U.S. production of battery materials, and negotiations with allies for exemptions. They're also said to plan on taking money allocated for building charging stations and making EVs more affordable and redirecting them to sourcing batteries and the required minerals from places other than China. In addition, they reportedly want to axe the Biden administration's $7,500 tax credit for consumer EV purchases. The plans will let automakers produce more gas-powered vehicles by reversing emissions and fuel economy standards, pushing them back to 2019 levels. Now, climate scientists have stressed the importance of transitioning from gas-powered cars to EVs and reducing carbon emissions and fending off the most ravaging scenarios for the planet. The Biden administration has championed climate legislation like the Inflation Reduction Act, which allocated $369 billion for green initiatives, and EPA rules that require automakers to ramp up EV sales. Meanwhile, Trump has called the climate change a hoax. In May, he reportedly told a group of oil executives that he would immediately reverse dozens of Biden's environmental rules while blocking new ones from being enacted. So if you've been watching my videos, I've been talking about the kind of tug-of-war battle going on between Biden and Trump. Trump says he's going to dismiss all the different policies that Biden has in place and reverse all the decisions that Biden has been making for the past weeks. Biden has been loaning out and granting a lot of billions of dollars to different companies to build out the EV infrastructure, to install charging stalls, and to also develop plants to create batteries, and then also everything related to the green initiatives, and also creating a lot of the different components that are necessary for technological advancement. Now, logically, from a business perspective, it would not make sense for them to allocate this money for automakers to make more gas-powered vehicles due to the fact that in 2017, it hit a peak and sales have been declining since then. And in addition to those declining sales, all these charging stalls that have been installed around the US throughout this year in 2024, not putting them to use would also not make a lot of sense either. And in order order for them to be used, electric vehicles are going to be needed. And also you got a lot of people who are behind on car payments. And then I'm sure there are lots of people who are not looking to buy new vehicles and want to keep their old ones. A lot of the things that are coming from the Trump team could be them saying these things until they get into office, and then their tune may change or they may soften their tune. Who really knows? But what we do know is that when January comes around, we're going to find out what Trump is going to do. And as time moves along, we'll be in 2025 and we'll see how all of this plays out. Let's move on to the next article. T-Mobile opens beta test signups for its Starlink satellite cell service. T-Mobile and Starlink are marching forward with their plan to offer cell service via the latter satellites, and now the provider is opening up registrations for anyone who wants to beta test the creatively dubbed T-Mobile Starlink direct-to-cell satellite service. The first beta test is slated for 2025. It will focus on text messaging at the outset. Voice and data connectivity is slated to become available at a later date, and any T-Mobile postpaid voice customers with a compatible device can sign up for the free beta. With the help of Starlink, T-Mobile is planning to provide coverage to the 500,000 square miles of U.S. land that's not covered by terrestrial cell towers. The direct-to-cell satellite constellation is designed to integrate into T-Mobile's existing network with the idea that it'll work like the regular cell service. So even though they plan to start off helping out with dead zones and those areas where there's not a lot of cell service, I believe we could be looking at the future of cell phone connection that's going to happen around the globe. And with the Starlink services, we saw throughout the year how it helped those people within those tragedies related to the hurricanes of having the ability to connect to the people that they needed to connect to, family and friends. So satellite service companies like Starlink provide expanded coverage, reduced latency, resilience to disruption, and of course, faster speeds. So even though these traditional companies such as your T-Mobiles, Verizons, and AT&Ts are around, I think the Starlinks are going to be the future of coverage, and we can either see these traditional companies find a way to merge into these satellite companies or go by the wayside for the years to come. But we shall see if that's going to happen as we move along into this technological future. Let's move on to that next article. YouTube's latest test lets creators post voice notes as comments. YouTube is experimenting with a new way to engage fans by giving creators the ability to post voice notes and reply to comments on their videos, the company announced on Monday. The ability to post voice notes is limited to certain creators in the US for the time being. YouTube says they'll only be able to post these voice comments through the iOS YouTube app on their own channels. Creators who have this feature enabled can tap on the new sound wave icon while replying to a comment, record their reply, and post it as a comment. While some creators can post a voice comment, everyone will be able to listen to these comments. Users will also see a transcript button below the voice note to read the comment if they don't want to play the voice note. The company says it hopes the experiment will result in more meaningful relationships between creators and fans in the future. So I do believe this is a really great idea that YouTube is going to be rolling out, and I hope that all creators will be able to have it. I do think that with this, from my perspective, is going to give the creators an opportunity to provide a more natural response to the comments that are in their comment section. And also, I think this is going to pair up well with the auto dubbing feature that YouTube has rolled out. And with these voice notes, if they could find a way to translate those comments for all people around the globe in different countries and different areas to read in their language, this is really going to be something that's going to help build those relationships and create stronger communities on the YouTube platform. So as time moves on, we'll see what happens next. If you are watching different videos, you might find these voice notes on a creator's YouTube channel. And if you do, provide your thoughts on what you think about those voice notes. Let's move on to some more news related to energy. GM and ChargePoint plan to install hundreds of fast EV chargers by the end of 2025. GM is partnering with ChargePoint to build out a new EV charging network under the GM Energy brand, the company announced recently. GM plans to install up to 500 DC fast charging ports at stations deployed in strategic places across the US, with some equipped with ChargePoint's Express Plus platform that supports charge speeds up to 500 kilowatts. GM and ChargePoint plan to open the stations rapidly, with the locations deployed by the end of 2025. ChargePoint will bring its OmniPort charging hardware for the project, which can connect with vehicles fitted with either CCS or Tesla's NACS ports, so that owners generally would not need to carry an adapter. This isn't GM Energy's only EV charger partnership. GM is is also building stations with Flying J and pilot truck stops, while also taking a role in the EV charging consortium IANA with major players like Hyundai, Kia, BMW, and Stellantis. So yeah, I stated a little earlier before, it's not making a lot of sense as to why the Trump team and the Trump administration would roll back the EV policies that Biden has put into place. And with all these charging stalls already installed, it would have been a lot of wasted time, a lot of wasted money, and a lot of wasted resources. Also, from another perspective in this video right here, I did talk about how GM had shut down Cruise and wants to allocate any remaining money into their Super Cruise technology, where they want to build out a more hands-off and eyes-off system, which to me sounds a lot like an autonomous vehicle that they want to deploy into their current vehicles or into future ones with this technology. And with this news, I think they are laying down the groundwork in the infrastructure so that when future customers come, they can know that they have charging stalls where they can charge their vehicles. And for current customers, they know that there's an infrastructure in place where those people can charge their vehicles. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with GM as we move into the new year in 2025. And with the new administration, we are sure to be able to find out what's going to happen next. And I'll be here to present all that information to you as it comes. Let's move on to the next article. California's Pacific Gas and Electric could receive $15 billion in federal loans to modernize its power grid. Pacific Gas and Electric Co. could receive up to $15 billion in federal loans to help the utility modernize its power grid and expand clean energy infrastructure across Central and Northern California, officials announced on Tuesday. The U.S. Department of Energy announced a conditional commitment for one of the largest loan guarantees ever under its Energy Infrastructure Reinvestment Program. When finalized, the money would be loaned in installments over several years. The funds would support a portfolio of projects to expand hydropower generation and battery storage, upgrade transmission capacity, and enable virtual power plants throughout PG&E's, the Energy Department said. This innovative loan program will help ensure that Californians will see more stable rates, enjoy more good clean energy jobs, and live with fewer harmful emissions. The loan office hopes to finalize the commitment before President Joe Biden leaves office next month. So it looks like the state of California is looking to be a part of these energy upgrades or these energy movements that is happening throughout the U.S. with these different companies. And also with California, they are known to have a lot of power outages, so upgrading this grid is probably necessary. But from another perspective, a lot of technology testing happens out of California, whether it's drones, robotaxis, or delivery robots. So with their plan to upgrade the grid, I think this is also playing a part in it where they could have even more testing of new technology out there in the state. So that's just something to be on the lookout for if you're out there in California. Let's move on to that next article. Honda and Nissan explore merger to navigate uncertain EV future. Japanese automakers Honda and Nissan are in talks to merge to better compete with electric vehicle manufacturers like Tesla, BYD, and others. Both Honda and Nissan are also discussing a plan to pull Mitsubishi into the party, which would be akin to how various Japanese electronic brands banded together, such as Konica Minolta, JVC Kenwood, and others. Honda and Nissan were already working together to develop EV technology and software and had invited Mitsubishi to that party as well. Of the two companies, it's Nissan that's really in trouble and reportedly will only survive another year unless another company like Honda swoops in to buy Nissan shares. EV market growth has slowed worldwide, but Chinese brands are outpacing US, European, and Japanese manufacturers. According to Bloomberg, Japanese automakers are losing big market share in East and Southeast Asia from China to Indonesia. So it looks like Nissan is another traditional automaker company whose future looks bleak, and this is just something to be on the lookout for. If you do own a Nissan vehicle, you could possibly in the future, in the years to come, see a lot of delays relating to getting your car fixed and all those other things. This goes to show that even the traditional companies are finding a way to want to move into these electric vehicle spaces. And because of that, in all the different articles that I talked about today, I honestly believe that we are moving towards an electric vehicle future where we're going to see a lot more of them out on the road within 3 to 5 years. So as stated before, I think 2025 is going to be that year, that starting point where things are going to begin to pick up and start to take off as the wheel gets spinning. So that is some of the news you missed in the world of technology. I hope you enjoyed the video, and to continue to stay informed on all the great things happening in the world of tech, you should like the video, subscribe, and then check out these two videos right here and comment down below in the comment section and let me know your thoughts.